Alright, back to flipping it this way so I can actually go through the books, like looking at them. So today I'm going to go through the Sword Coast Adventurer's Guide. This is another expansion source book that you can pick up. And of course, being the Sword Coast, it's set in the Forgotten Realms, which is the flagship set in 4 D&D 5th edition. So like, as you can see with like the book, of course, like got nice glare from the sun. It has like only 5 chapters, so like the first one actually like is pretty much like a background on the realm. So like it has like a nice big map of the Forgotten Realms. So like the Sword Coast, as you can see, it pretty much is like goes all the way up from like the spine of the world, all the way down to like down here to the Forest of Tethir. And of course I'm probably pronouncing that stuff wrong. So, but like normally it focuses like right like along Baldur's Gate and up to like Waterdeep. So those are like some of the major cities that like that are in this one in this setting. So like this setting kind of focuses more on the Sword Coast, even though the Forgotten Realms in the world of Toriel is a lot bigger than that, because like you got the Tethir, and like you got Halrua where the mages are, and of course I'm probably like mispronouncing stuff. So like here's like another like a good map on like the actual world. So like you can see that the Sword Coast is pretty much over here, and it's only like a small part of like the world. So like you got the nation of AMN, which is like a part of like the original Baldur's Gate games way back in the mid late 90s. Like Baldur's Gate 2 was set in that. So like that was around the time of like the god of murder Bale had his children and offspring, and you played the main character who's one of them. So that was a long time ago, and so it gives a map of the actual like much larger realm. And so like you could in 3rd edition, I know you could play all over and like and not have to just focus on the Sword Coast. But even though the Sword Coast is probably the most popular, so like this first chapter gives background on the area of like each section, and then like it kind of like talks about the calendars and time, and like keeping track of the time, and it goes into like the present age, and like of course like it talks about the time of the troubles that like a lot of like the books were written around, and like especially with R.A. Salvatore's like books on Drizzt. So like it has set of course like I know there's a lot more books that have come out that have like pushed the timeline a lot further. So I have still got to catch up on a lot of those books. So like I'll probably eventually get to those, because like I also got a lot of other Star Wars books that I want to catch up with too. So like I always say, especially my TikToks, that like my reading list is always a mile long, and it never seems to get any smaller, because as soon as I finish one book I pick up another two. So like yeah, and like getting back to this, it gets into like you can see like the magic, and like it kind of works like I would say slightly different than like other ones, because like you have in a sense more direct access to it. So like and of course it also gives like a whole list of the actual pantheon, so the of gods. So each one is kind of different and unique to each world. So like for instance, like Dragonlance pantheon is going to be different, and so like those people that are familiar with Dragonlance will probably remember Takhisis and Paladine, like the main 2 deities in that. So like I said, you got like pretty much different gods and goddesses, and so this breaks it down into like the different pantheons of like the races, and like the overall pantheon of the world. So like this whole first chapter is like gives you like a background information on like the campaign setting, so that way like you're not necessarily trying to make stuff up as you go, even though technically you could. Like I've reiterated before, like you technically only need the player's handbook, and like you can kind of like wing it. And so but like this and all the other expansion books that I've gotten into, these are great for like expanding your ideas and your options of being able to like run campaigns. So like everything, like you can always just pick these books up over time. So like going through like the this chapter right now with like the different gods, so like they give descriptions on them. So then chapter 2 is like it actually gets into like the actual Sword Coast and like different cities and like alliances and like different type of like of organizations, sort of like the Harpers that you see in the movie, the D&D movie, where like the Chris Pine's character, his bard character that he played, was part of the Harpers. So like you got a city, like a map of Baldur's Gate, which is the major city that I mentioned. So like and also got like you can have like background characters of like and also like you got another like a small region of like up here, the spine of the world, where like a lot of the R.A. Salvatore books of Drizzt was taking place. So this second chapter, in a sense, kind of goes in depth in the cities, and like of course Neverwinter is another populous city. And, like you got Baldur's Gate, you got Neverwinter here, and you got Waterdeep. So like Neverwinter, of course, had like some cute computer games too in the past. So like it's definitely a big product for like Wizards of the Coast or like Hasbro now, and that they have like a lot of products that have been made over the years. So like like right here, you can kind of see like that gets into Waterdeep, the city Waterdeep right there, and like it also gives like a actual map of the cities and stuff, and you can use. And so like and also like small like different like narrowed down pictures of like specific regions of the Sword Coast. So like it gives you like in-depth information on like all the cities and like the people that dwell in it. So like I said, this being like an expansion rulebook, it gives you a lot more options to go further in depth on a specific campaign. For like the Forgotten Realms, like I've mentioned before, is the flagship campaign set. And so like this is the whole second chapter, so, going in depth and everything. So like you can see like the isles where like the elves dwell. And a lot of them have retreated to, so, sort of like how like in Lord of the Rings they retreat to the Grey Havens. It's kind of like the same kind of concept with these islands, but like they do slightly different take on it. So like this is the whole second chapter. So like yeah, these first two chapters are kind of like the long chapters to give you like a lot of like the background information and like a lot of like like I said, the microscopic in a sense, like zooms in on specific areas of the Sword Coast to kind of like give you like a better picture of that geographic location. So like and it goes into depth of like the different locations, not just the cities as well. So like okay, of course Luskan here is another city that resides like right by the spine of the world. So like you can see here where it's located. So like it usually like the train from the spine of the world, and like the up here, like there's also an adventure book that I'll be getting into that's set in that. So like the Luskan's a big trading city that's like famous for being controlled by like a cabal of wizards. So like and like I said, it's on the edge of the spine of the world, right before like you start trading with like the 10 towns and everything. So like and then chapter 3 actually gets into the races much more in depth. So like for instance, like with dwarves and elves and stuff. So like you got like this sub races, like how each like the sun elves, the wood elves, the drow, and it goes in depth into like how like each race like is divided into like sub races type of deal, and just like the humans are divided into like in a sense sub races as well. So like this third chapter actually goes into gives you more details on how to do like run the character races in this Forgotten Realms campaign set, and like of course as the book says, it's like focuses on the actual like Sword Coast, which is kind of like zooms in on just this area. So then the chapter 4, as you can see, gets into the actual classes and gives you ideas like for instance right here the bards and gives you ideas on how to do bardic colleges and like the Harpers that I mentioned, and gives you ideas of like organizations that you can delve into. So it gives you more in-depth options on how to like character options, not just for like the races that I mentioned earlier, and like but also your classes as well. So like, but like the first two chapters are relatively long, so like these are like shorter chapters, and then like as we go through, like you can see like all the different classes that have like several different new options that you can do. So like, the types of characters that you can create between like the classes and races, and like the different types of backgrounds that you can get, which gets into here in chapter 5. So this gives you kind of like backgrounds that are specific to the Forgotten Realms campaign setting. So which is kind of cool because like you can have like several different like types of like character background stories, and it kind of expands on that. So then like it also has like an appendix here, which is like how to like kind of like transfer these over to like the other realms and everything. So like for instance, like that barbarian class like that you find in Forgotten Realms, it gives you a description on that. The cleric, the fighter, monk, it gives you ideas on how to like transfer classes that like appear in here, and like how you could switch around to like the different campaign settings, like Everon, Dragonlance that I mentioned, and Greyhawk is another popular one. So like pretty much like goes through like each like campaign setting. Like the first one was Dragonlance, and right here you can see this one gives you ideas of the classes on how to transfer them over to the Greyhawk campaign setting. So it can also like gives you ideas on like if you did a homemade world there world, you can transfer like the classes and stuff. And of course, like usual, it has like an index where you can quickly look up stuff that you find in the book. So well, I'll continue to reiterate like books like these aren't necessary. They're definitely worth picking up over time, especially as you keep going and keep playing. And it gives you a lot more options to like expand your campaigns and everything. So like after like after you get the like player's handbook, and like especially if like you're a DM, if you get the DM's guide and the monsters manual, and like the other expansion rule books, like Xanathar's Guide to Everything, Tasha's Cauldron to Everything, and the Monsters of the Multiverse, which are the like I've mentioned before, the Holy Trinity of the expansion ones. And like the player's handbook, DM guide, and monster manuals are the Holy Trinity, which are those are the core rule books. So like books like this well, again, aren't necessary. They definitely do help expand on your ideas and like options that you can run. And so like with this one being specific to like the actual like Forgotten Realms and the it focuses in on the Sword Coast, which where you could have like a ton of adventures. So like the D&D movie is probably like a prime example, a recent example of one kind of adventure you could have in the Sword Coast, because that's the area they use. And like so if you haven't seen the movie yet, I would say go rent it or stream it through like whatever streaming app you use, whether it's I don't know where it is, whether it's through like Amazon, Disney Plus, Hulu, or whatever you get. So like definitely watch this, because it gives you a good idea of like what you could use with this book and everything. So like this is just yet another expansion book that you can pick up to focus in on like a specific campaign set. And so like in the next few weeks I'll probably be getting into even more of the expansion books that I've picked up over the years. So like for this week it was the Sword Coast Adventures Guide to get into the basically, like I said before, the flagship set for the 5th edition. So like this one, if you're looking for a campaign set in Pacific, then like you could definitely get something like this to like add to your repertoire of books that and expand your library. So until next week.